Ma'am, you need to step out of that vehicle right now. The words cut through the afternoon air like a blade. Helena Briggs sat perfectly still behind the steering wheel of her sedan, hands resting at 10 and 2, engine off. She'd pulled into visitor parking space number 12 at Ridgemont Elementary exactly 8 minutes ago. The dashboard clock read 3:15 p.m., pickup time, the same time she'd arrived every Wednesday for the past 6 months. Through her windshield, clearly visible to anyone who cared to look, a laminated placard hung from her rearview mirror. White cardstock, blue border, the school's logo printed in the top left corner. Visitor parking permit, dated today, October 21st. Issued by the front office at 3:07 p.m., signed by the attendance clerk. Her name written in careful block letters. Helena Briggs. Purpose of visit? Student pickup. Student name? Zoe Briggs, grade 3. Authorized by C. Briggs, parent guardian. Every detail correct. Every box checked. The kind of documentation that should matter. Officer Kyle Trudeau approached her driver's side window with measured steps, boots heavy against the asphalt. His right hand hovered near his belt, fingers twitching. His partner, younger, a woman with nervous eyes, hung back near their cruiser, parked at an angle that blocked Helena's exit. Helena kept her hands visible. Another habit, one she'd learned long before today. "Officer," she said, her voice even, "is there a problem? I'm parked in a designated visitor space with a valid permit." Trudeau leaned down, one hand now resting on her door. "This lot's for parents only. I'm here to pick up my niece." Helena gestured toward the placard without moving her hands from the wheel. "I have authorization from her mother. The permit was issued less than 10 minutes ago. Permit doesn't mean you belong here." The words landed with deliberate weight. Not a question, not even a statement of policy, just a declaration of territory. Behind Trudeau, the school's front doors swung open. Principal Diane Holloway emerged, her heels clicking against the concrete walkway. She moved with purpose, scanning the parking lot until her eyes found Helena's car. She said something to a teacher standing near the entrance, then adjusted her blazer and started across the lot. Helena's pulse remained steady. 23 years had taught her to recognize the shape of trouble before it fully formed. The principal's trajectory, the officer's posture, the way the other parents, mostly white, mostly comfortable, slowed their approach to the building, phones already rising. She reached slowly toward her glove compartment. Documentation, registration, proof of insurance, everything by the book. Trudeau's hand moved to his weapon. The parking lot went quiet. Even the children's voices from inside the building seemed to fade. Everything that happened next, every word, every decision, every consequence hinged on the next 10 seconds. And Helena Briggs knew exactly what was coming. 6 months earlier, Helena Briggs had made a promise to her sister. Wednesday afternoons, 3 o'clock pickup. No exceptions. Claudia worked double shifts at County General, trauma surgery, the kind of medicine that didn't respect schedules or family obligations. Someone needed to be there for Zoe when the final bell rang. Helena had said yes without hesitation. She'd rearranged her calendar, blocked the time, made it work. Because that's what family did. The alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. every morning. Helena woke before the sound finished its first cycle, hand already reaching to silence it. Habit. Her feet found slippers in the dark. The coffee maker had been preset the night before, another habit. While it brewed, she spread her papers across the kitchen table. Color-coded folders, blue for urgent matters, yellow for review, green for completed files waiting to be archived. She worked through each one with methodical precision, pen moving in neat annotations along the margins. A lifetime of reading documents had taught her something most people never learned. Details saved you, or they buried you. There was no in-between. Zoe stumbled into the kitchen at 6:45, braids askew, still half asleep. "Morning, Aunt Hel." "Morning, baby." Helena closed her folder and slid a plate of scrambled eggs across the counter. "Eat. We leave in 20 minutes." They'd perfected this rhythm. Zoe ate while Helena packed lunches. One for Zoe, one for herself. Thermos of soup. Sandwich wrapped in wax paper. Apples sliced into quarters. Everything organized, nothing forgotten. Claudia emerged at 7, already in scrubs, running late as usual. She kissed Zoe's forehead and grabbed the coffee Helena had poured for her. "You're a saint." "I'm your sister." Helena handed her the travel mug. "Different thing. Same result." Claudia squeezed her arm. "I don't know what we'd do without you." Helena drove Zoe to Ridgemont 3 mornings a week. Claudia covered the other 2 when her schedule allowed. Raymond, Claudia's husband, Zoe's father, traveled for work, gone more often than home. The arrangement worked. Mostly. The trouble started in the first week. Helena had pulled into the visitor lot, Zoe chattering in the back seat about a science project. The security guard, a thick-necked man whose name tag read Morrison, appeared at her window before she'd even turned off the engine. "Can I help you?" His tone suggested she needed help, the kind that involved leaving. "I'm dropping off my niece," Helena gestured to Zoe. "She's in 3rd grade. You have a visitor badge?" Helena pointed to the placard hanging from her mirror, issued by the front office 10 minutes earlier. Morrison studied it like it might be counterfeit. Behind them, 3 white parents drove past without being stopped. One waved at Morrison. He waved back. "All right," he said finally. "But park in the far row. These spots up front are for regulars." The far row meant a longer walk for Zoe. But Helena had said nothing. She'd moved the car and walked her niece to the entrance, aware of eyes tracking their progress. It happened again the next week, and the week after that. By October, being stopped had become routine. Morrison would ask for her badge even after seeing her twice that same week. He'd remind her about parking in the far row. He'd watch her walk Zoe to the building like she might suddenly veer off toward some unauthorized area. The parent-teacher conference in September had been worse. Mr. Gavin, Zoe's homeroom teacher, sat behind his desk with Zoe's progress report open. Claudia had been called into emergency surgery. Raymond was in Dallas. Helena came instead, arriving 15 minutes early with her own notebook and list of questions. Gavin looked surprised when she introduced herself. "Oh, you're the aunt?" "Yes. Zoe's mother asked me to attend on her behalf." "I see." He glanced at his notes. "And you're involved in Zoe's education? Or is this just temporary?" Helena's jaw tightened. She kept her voice level. "I help with homework 3 evenings a week. I attend school functions. I'm on her emergency contact list. So yes, I'm involved." "It's just," Gavin shifted in his seat. "We prefer to have conversations about academic progress with the primary guardians. Continuity, you understand. I understand that my sister is saving someone's life right now, and I'm here asking about Zoe's math scores. Can we proceed?" They'd proceeded, barely. Gavin had been polite but distant, addressing most of his comments to the empty chair beside Helena, as if Claudia might materialize. When Helena asked about Zoe's reading level, he'd answered in the tone people used with children. When she'd questioned a grade on a science project, he'd bristled. 2 weeks later, a note came home requesting that all pickup authorizations be re-verified with the front office. Helena had complied. She'd filled out forms, provided her driver's license number, listed her relationship to Zoe, everything they asked for. The scrutiny hadn't stopped. It wasn't just the school. Last month at the grocery store on 5th Street, Helena had been followed by security while shopping for Zoe's birthday present. She'd noticed him 3 aisles in, young guy, radio on his hip, pretending to straighten merchandise while keeping her in his peripheral vision. She'd continued shopping, selected wrapping paper, picked up a card. The security guard had stayed 10 feet behind her the entire time. At checkout, he'd positioned himself near the exit. Watching, waiting for her to give him a reason. Helena had paid, taken her receipt, and walked out without acknowledging him. Because acknowledging it meant having a conversation she'd had 100 times before. And she was tired. The exhaustion wasn't physical. It was the weight of being watched, of having every action interpreted as suspicious, of knowing that her competence, her calm, her careful adherence to every rule, none of it mattered when people had already decided who she was. At home, Helena worked with Zoe on homework most evenings. She spread the assignments across the dining room table, reviewing each one with forensic attention. "Show your work," she'd say, tapping a math problem. If the instructions say show your work, that means every step. Details matter. Zoe would roll her eyes. "But I got the right answer." The answer isn't enough. You need to prove how you got there. Claudia had laughed one evening, watching them from the kitchen. "Hell, you interrogate that homework like it's a witness on the stand." Helena had smiled. "Because sloppy work has consequences." It was the kind of thing anyone disciplined might say. An accountant, an engineer, a project manager. Anyone who understood that details were the difference between success and failure. Mrs. Chen, their neighbor in 4B, had nodded knowingly over coffee one Saturday morning. "How many times has that school stopped you now?" "Too many to count." Helena stirred her cup. "Morrison acts like I'm casing the place. They see what they expect to see." Mrs. Chen shook her head. "My son went through the same thing at his daughter's school. Chinese man, picking up his own child, and they asked for his ID every single time. For 2 years. What did he do? What could he do?" Mrs. Chen shrugged. "He kept showing the ID. That was the thing about these small cruelties. They accumulated. Each one alone seemed too minor to fight. Security following you through a store? Maybe he was just doing his job. Teacher questioning your involvement? Maybe he just wanted to speak with the parent. Guard stopping you at school? Maybe he didn't recognize you yet. But together, they formed a pattern. A message, delivered in increments. You don't belong here. October 21st started like any Wednesday. Helena woke at 5:30, reviewed her notes over coffee. 3 folders today, all yellow. Made Zoe's lunch. Drove her to school, where Morrison stopped her at the gate. Same questions. Same scrutiny. Same reminders about parking in the far row. She went to work. The location unspecified, the nature of her duties unmentioned. Important meetings. Difficult decisions. The kind of day that required her full attention. At 2:30 p.m. she changed in her office. Jeans instead of slacks. Comfortable blazer instead of her usual jacket. Simple jewelry, small earrings, a watch. Nothing that drew attention. She packed her work materials into her bag, locked her office door, and drove toward Ridgemont. She arrived at 2:52, 8 minutes early. Habit. Being late meant rushing, and rushing meant mistakes. The visitor lot was half full. Helena pulled into space 12. Front row, clearly marked visitor parking. Not the far row Morrison preferred, but a legitimate spot nonetheless. She turned off the engine and checked her phone. 3 messages from Claudia about dinner plans, 1 reminder about Zoe's school field trip next week. At 3 o'clock, she walked to the front office. The attendance clerk, an older woman named Mrs. Porter, smiled when Helena approached. "Here for Zoe?" "Yes, ma'am." Porter filled out the visitor permit without being asked. They'd done this enough times that the routine was automatic. Name, date, purpose, student name, parent authorization. Porter signed at the bottom and slid it across the counter. "She's excited about seeing you." Porter handed Helena the laminated placard. "She told me at lunch you're taking her for ice cream." Helena smiled. "If her homework's done." She walked back to her car, hung the placard from her rearview mirror, and settled in to wait. Pickup officially started at 3:15. The final bell would ring in 12 minutes. Other parents began arriving. SUVs and sedans filling the spaces around her. A white woman in a Mercedes waved at Principal Holloway, who'd emerged from the building to supervise dismissal. A man in a pickup truck called out a greeting to Mr. Gavin. Parents who belonged, who weren't questioned. Helena sat with her hands on the steering wheel. Patient, prepared, doing exactly what she was supposed to do. At 3:12, she noticed the police cruiser. It pulled into the lot from the north entrance, moving slowly. The officers inside scanned the rows of parked cars. Helena watched them in her side mirror, a familiar unease settling in her chest. The cruiser stopped, 50 feet behind her. Both officers stepped out. Helena's hands remained on the wheel at 10 and 2. Visible. Steady. She watched in the mirror as the male officer, Trudeau, though she didn't know his name yet, spoke into his radio. His partner looked uncertain, glancing between Trudeau and Helena's car. Helena took a slow breath. Here we go again. Trudeau started walking toward her. His approach was deliberate, hand already moving to his belt. His body language broadcasting authority and suspicion in equal measure. Helena didn't move. She knew this dance. Stay calm, stay polite. Provide what they ask for. Don't give them a reason. The problem was they didn't need a reason. They never had. Trudeau reached her window and leaned down. "Ma'am, you need to step out of that vehicle right now." Helena kept her hands visible on the steering wheel. "Officer, I'm legally parked in a visitor space. Is there a specific issue?" Trudeau straightened slightly, his hand still resting on her door. "License and registration. Now." The demand came without explanation. No greeting, no statement of probable cause. Just the expectation of immediate compliance. Helena reached slowly toward her center console. "I'm retrieving my registration from the glove compartment. My license is in my purse on the passenger seat." She produced her registration first. Current tags, her name clearly printed. She placed it on her lap, then reached for her purse. "My license is in the side pocket. I'm reaching for it now." "Slowly," Trudeau said. Helena handed both documents through the window. Trudeau examined them with exaggerated care, finding nothing wrong, finding nothing that justified his presence. "What's your business at this school?" he asked. "I'm picking up my niece, Zoe Briggs, 3rd grade. Helena gestured toward the placard. "I have a visitor permit issued by the front office 20 minutes ago." Trudeau's eyes flicked to the placard but didn't linger. "Lot of complaints about unauthorized vehicles. Need to verify you have a reason to be here." "I just showed you my reason. The permit lists everything required. Everything is in order. Doesn't prove you're supposed to be here." Behind Trudeau, Principal Holloway crossed the parking lot with purposeful strides. She'd been watching from the entrance. "Officer Trudeau," Holloway's smile was tight. "Thank you for responding so quickly." Helena's eyes narrowed. "I didn't realize anyone had called you." Holloway turned to her with practiced concern. "We've had issues this semester with unauthorized pickups. Our protocol requires verification of anyone we don't immediately recognize." The statement was carefully worded. But Helena had been picking up Zoe for 6 months. This wasn't about recognition. "I'm on Zoe's authorized pickup list," Helena said evenly. "I've been picking her up every Wednesday since April. You can verify that in your attendance records." Holloway consulted her clipboard. "I'll need to see identification." Helena had already provided ID to Trudeau. Now she was being asked again. Another hoop. She handed her license to Holloway, who studied it with theatrical thoroughness. Everything matched. "This shows you live at the same address as the child's mother," Holloway said. "But our records indicate that only Mrs. Claudia Briggs and Mr. Raymond Briggs are authorized for pickup." "That's incorrect." Helena's voice remained steady. "I was added to the list in September. If your records don't reflect that, it's an administrative error on your end. Koval spoke up for the first time. The permit says she's authorized. Mrs. Porter wouldn't have issued it otherwise. Trudeau shot her a look. Nina. Holloway's jaw tightened. Mrs. Porter may not have checked thoroughly. We need to verify with Mrs. Briggs directly before allowing pickup. Claudia is in surgery. She's unreachable for the next 4 hours. Zoe is expecting me, as she has every Wednesday. Then perhaps you should have coordinated more carefully. Holloway's tone took on an edge. Helena felt the familiar heat rising. Other parents had slowed their approach, sensing drama. A few had phones out, recording. Helena straightened. Am I being detained, or am I free to go? The question was deliberate, precise, the kind of language that came from knowing how these situations were supposed to work. Trudeau's expression hardened. You're trespassing. If you don't leave voluntarily, you'll be removed. On what grounds? Helena's voice remained level. I have written authorization. I've provided identification. This is unlawful detention. The word unlawful hung in the air. Not unfair, not wrong. Unlawful, a term with specific legal meaning. Koval shifted uncomfortably. Kyle, maybe we should— I've got this, Trudeau snapped. A teacher, Ms. Ramirez, appeared near the entrance, watching the encounter with troubled eyes, like she wanted to intervene but couldn't. Holloway stepped closer. Ms. Briggs, until we can confirm your authorization with Mrs. Briggs directly, you need to vacate school property. Claudia gave consent in writing. Your staff issued me a permit. You can't retroactively revoke access. We're simply asking you to return when we can verify. Holloway's voice remained pleasant. Professional distance. Trudeau leaned in. Ma'am, step out of the vehicle. Hands where I can see them. Helena reached for her phone. I'm going to document this interaction. She activated the voice recording app, placing the phone on her dashboard. Red dot pulsing. Timestamp running. Trudeau's face flushed. Turn that off. I have the right to record a public official performing their duties. Helena's voice was calm. This parking lot is public space. Recording is legal. She'd chosen her words carefully, simply stating facts. I said turn it off. Trudeau reached through the window toward the phone. Helena pulled the phone back toward her chest. The movement was defensive. Her arm brushed against his hand, barely contact, but Trudeau recoiled as if struck. Did you just hit an officer? That's assault! Helena's eyes widened. I did not strike you. You reached into my vehicle. I moved my property away. Multiple witnesses can confirm that. But Trudeau had already keyed his radio. Dispatch, Unit 14, Code 10 at Ridgemont Elementary. Subject refusing to comply. Possible 415 and 243. Requesting backup. 415, disturbing the peace. 243, battery on an officer. Both misdemeanors. Both fabricated. More parents had gathered, forming a semicircle. Some looked concerned. Several were recording. A woman in yoga pants, Karen Voss, pushed forward. Diane, what's going on? I know this woman. She picks up Zoe all the time. Holloway turned, her mask slipping. Mrs. Voss, unless you have relevant information, step back. I do have relevant information. Karen gestured at Helena. She has a permit. She's here every Wednesday. This is ridiculous. Trudeau stepped toward Karen. Ma'am, if you interfere, you'll be cited for obstruction. Step back. Karen retreated, but her phone stayed up. Helena sat perfectly still, hands on the wheel. She'd done everything right, followed every rule, and somehow she was still the one being treated like a criminal. Koval approached Trudeau, speaking low. Kyle, I don't think she actually hit you. The body cam will show her refusing to comply. Trudeau's voice was loud enough to hear. That's all it needs to show. In the distance, sirens approached. The window for de-escalation was closing. Helena kept her voice steady, projecting toward witnesses. For the record, I have not refused any lawful order. I've provided identification. I've explained my authorized purpose. I am not resisting. What I am doing is exercising my constitutional right to document this encounter and to question the legal basis for my detention. Ms. Ramirez stepped forward, approaching Holloway. Principal Holloway, I've seen this woman pick up Zoe many times. She's definitely on the approved list. Holloway's expression hardened. Ms. Ramirez, return to your classroom. Now. The teacher retreated, casting one more troubled glance at Helena. A second cruiser pulled in, lights flashing. Sergeant Marcus Fenn emerged, older, gray at his temples, practiced eyes assessing the scene. What's the situation? Fenn's voice was neutral. Trudeau straightened. Subject parked unauthorized, refused to leave, assaulted me when I attempted to secure evidence. Helena spoke before Fenn could respond. That's false. I'm parked legally with a valid permit. I have not assaulted anyone. Officer Trudeau reached into my vehicle. I moved my phone away. That is not assault. Fenn looked between them. Ma'am, you have identification? I've already provided it. Helena gestured at her documents in Trudeau's hand. Everything is in order. No warrants, valid license, authorized permit. Fenn examined the documents, then radioed dispatch. Confirmation came back. Clean record. Address matched. For a moment, Helena hoped Fenn might be reasonable. Then Holloway stepped in. Sergeant, our policy requires we verify pickups with the parent directly when there's any question. This woman has been asked to leave. She's refused. That's not accurate. Helena's voice remained controlled. I explained that Mrs. Briggs is in surgery. I offered to wait. What I refused was leaving immediately, which would mean Zoe has no one to pick her up. Fenn looked at Holloway. Is the child's mother unreachable? I have no way of knowing that. Holloway's arms crossed. Our records show specific individuals, and until we verify, she needs to leave. Fenn turned back. Ma'am, until this gets sorted out, you'll need to come with us. Am I under arrest? Detained, pending verification. On what charge? Trespassing and battery on a peace officer. Helena's breath caught. She'd seen it coming, but hearing it officially still felt like being punched. I want to see the basis for those charges. You assaulted me, Trudeau's voice carried. Everyone saw it. Multiple witnesses will testify that I did not. This is a false arrest. But the machinery was already in motion. Backup had arrived. Witnesses were recording. Holloway was making calls. And Helena was about to be removed from her car in front of a school full of children, including her niece. Officer Koval moved to the passenger side of Helena's vehicle. Ma'am, it'll be easier if you just cooperate. Helena turned to look at her. I am cooperating. I'm asking that procedure be followed correctly. Trudeau yanked open Helena's door. Out. Now. Helena stepped out slowly, keeping her hands visible at shoulder height. She knew sudden movements could be weaponized later. The parking lot had gone quiet. Dismissal chaos, children's laughter, parents calling, car doors, replaced by unnatural stillness. Everyone was watching. Parents had stopped mid-stride, forming a loose circle. Some clutched their children tighter. Others pulled out phones. Most just looked curious, the way people slow down for highway accidents. Principal Holloway positioned herself strategically, addressing the audience. Everyone, please move along. This is a security matter. We need to keep the pickup area clear. Her voice carried practiced authority. A performance. See how seriously we take safety. But no one moved. Karen Voss pushed through the crowd, yoga mat under one arm. Diane, this is absurd. I've seen this woman here dozens of times. She picks up Zoe every Wednesday. Holloway's smile tightened. Mrs. Voss, unless you have direct knowledge of the authorization issue, step back. Karen gestured at Helena. I do have direct knowledge. I've watched her with Zoe. That child runs to her aunt like she's the highlight of her day. This is harassment. Trudeau stepped toward Karen, one hand raised. Ma'am, Final warning. Interfere again, and you'll be cited for obstruction. Karen stepped back but kept her phone raised, recording. Another parent called out, a white man in a business suit. "Officer, she's got a valid permit. What's the actual problem?" Trudeau turned, scanning for the speaker. "The problem is trespassing and assault on an officer. Unless you witnessed those specific events, you have nothing relevant to contribute." The man lowered his gaze, stayed silent. That's how it worked. The uniform carried authority that didn't need justification. Miss Ramirez appeared at the crowd's edge, having walked her class outside. She saw Helena with hands raised, saw Trudeau's aggressive posture, and her face paled. She approached Holloway carefully. "Principal Holloway, I need to speak with you. Ms. Briggs has been on our approved list since April. I've personally checked her ID at least 20 times. Holloway turned, expression hardening. "Ms. Ramirez, return to your students." "But she's telling the truth." "Ms. Ramirez," Holloway's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Your contract comes up for renewal in June. Consider whether inserting yourself into matters outside your purview is wise." The threat was clear. Ms. Ramirez's hands trembled. She glanced at Helena, apology in her eyes, then retreated. Helena had heard the exchange. She filed it away. Another witness intimidated into silence. Fenn stepped forward with a notepad. "Ma'am, I need to document your property before transport. Empty your pockets." Helena complied slowly. A tissue, a hair tie, 17 cents. She placed each item on the hood with deliberate care. Fenn retrieved her purse and phone, inventorying contents while Koval took notes. Credit cards, driver's license, a small notebook, $43, a photo of Zoe, grinning, gap-toothed. Trudeau held up the notebook. "What's this?" "Notes," Helena said simply. "About what?" "Errands, appointments, things I need to remember." Trudeau flipped through it. The pages were filled with neat handwriting. Dates, times, brief notations. Nothing incriminating. But the precision was notable. Organized. Methodical. He closed it and added it to an evidence bag. "We'll hold on to this." "On what grounds?" Helena's voice remained calm. "That notebook contains nothing related to your charges. Seizing it is unlawful." "It's evidence," Trudeau said. "Of what crime specifically?" He didn't answer, just sealed the bag. The school bell rang. Children began pouring out, a tide of small bodies and high voices. Teachers tried to direct them, but several students had spotted the police and were pointing. Helena's chest tightened. Somewhere in that crowd was Zoe. She turned to Fenn. "My niece is about to come outside. She's 9 years old. Can we move somewhere less visible?" Fenn's expression didn't change. "Procedure requires we complete documentation on site. Then at least let someone tell her, 'Not our concern.'" And then it happened. Zoe emerged from the side entrance, yellow backpack bouncing, braids tied with ribbons. She scanned the lot for Helena's car. Her eyes found the police cruisers first, then Helena, hands raised, officers surrounding her. Zoe's face crumbled. She dropped her backpack and ran. "Aunt Hel!" Her voice carried, high and terrified. "Aunt Hel! What are they doing?" Ms. Ramirez moved to intercept, but Zoe was fast. She dodged between parents heading for Helena. Koval stepped into her path, arms outstretched. "Sweetie, you need to stay back." "That's my aunt!" Zoe tried to push past. "They're hurting her!" Helena's voice cut through the chaos. "Zoe, baby, I'm okay. This is a misunderstanding. Go back to Ms. Ramirez." "No!" Zoe's sobs grew louder. "I want to go home with you. You promised." The anguish in her niece's voice cracked something in Helena's composure. Her hands started to lower, to reach for Zoe. But Trudeau barked immediately. "Hands up! Keep your hands where I can see them!" Helena forced her hands back up. "Zoe, please. Go with Ms. Ramirez. I'll call your mom. Ms. Ramirez caught up, gently taking Zoe by the shoulders. Come on, sweetie. We'll call your mom together. Zoe fought her grip. They can't take her. She didn't do anything wrong. The crowd's energy shifted. What had been curiosity now carried discomfort. Several parents exchanged glances. Watching a 9-year-old break down, watching her terror, made the abstract concrete. Karen spoke again, louder. Officer, you're traumatizing this child. Is that necessary? Trudeau didn't look at her. Maybe the aunt should have thought about that before assaulting an officer. The lie, stated with casual confidence, hung in the air. Several parents who'd witnessed the actual interaction shifted uncomfortably. But no one else spoke up. Ms. Ramirez finally guided Zoe back toward the building, her sobs audible from 30 feet away. Helena stood motionless, watching her niece disappear. She blinked hard, forced even breathing. Emotion was ammunition. Holloway addressed the crowd. This situation is under control. Please collect your children and vacate the pickup area. Most parents complied. They gathered their children and headed to cars, some casting backward glances, most keeping heads down. But the phones stayed out. At least a dozen people were still recording. The footage would be uploaded within minutes, shared across social media. Helena knew how this worked. The court of public opinion moved faster than any legal proceeding. Sergeant Marcus Fenn arrived in an unmarked sedan, parking behind the second cruiser. He emerged with the deliberate movements of someone who'd worked patrol for decades, seen every variation of conflict, developed instincts about which situations required force and which required finesse. He assessed the scene quickly. Helena with hands raised, Trudeau radiating aggression, Koval looking increasingly uncomfortable, a crowd of witnesses with phones, and a principal standing just far enough away to maintain deniability. Fenn approached Trudeau first, speaking in a low voice. Walk me through it. Trudeau gestured at Helena. Trespassing complaint from school administration. Subject refused to leave when ordered. Became aggressive when I attempted to secure her recording device. Struck my hand. That's 243, battery on a peace officer. Fenn's eyes moved to Helena. Ma'am, is that accurate? Helena kept her voice steady, projecting just loud enough for nearby witnesses to hear. No. I was legally parked with valid authorization. I exercised my right to record our interaction. Officer Trudeau reached into my vehicle to forcibly take my phone. I withdrew my property. That's not battery. That's protecting myself from unlawful seizure. Fenn studied her for a long moment. The way she spoke, the precision of her language, the complete absence of panic or pleading. Most people in this situation would be emotional, defensive. This woman was presenting a legal argument like she was filing a brief. He turned to Koval. You witnessed the alleged assault. Koval hesitated. I saw Officer Trudeau reach toward her phone. She pulled it back. Their hands may have touched, but I wouldn't characterize it as, did she strike him or not? No, sir. Not in my observation. Trudeau's face flushed. She made aggressive contact. The body cam will show. The body cam will show exactly what happened, Fenn interrupted. Which is why we're going to document everything properly before transport. He pulled out his own notepad, flipping to a fresh page. This was his specialty, transforming messy street encounters into clean reports that would hold up under scrutiny. Every I dotted, every T crossed. Fenn addressed Helena directly. Ma'am, for the record, what's your full name and date of birth? Helena Marie Briggs, November 12, 1976. Current address? 4127 Oakmont Drive, Apartment 4B. Fenn wrote without looking up. Occupation? Helena paused for just a fraction of a second. Public service. Fenn's pen stopped moving. He looked up. Most people said teacher, nurse, office worker, something specific. Public service was deliberate vagueness. Can you be more specific? I work for the county. Helena's tone remained even. My supervisor's contact information is in my phone, which Officer Trudeau seized. We'll verify that during processing. Fenn made a note. What brings you to Ridgemont Elementary today? Picking up my niece, as I've done every Wednesday for 6 months. And you have authorization for that? Helena gestured toward her car. The visitor permit on my dashboard lists everything required. Student name, parent authorization, purpose of visit. Your officers have already examined it twice. Everything is in order. Fenn walked to Helena's car, studying the placard through the windshield. He photographed it with his phone, then checked the school's visitor log on his radio. Dispatch confirmed Helena's name appeared in the system, marked as authorized. He returned to where Helena stood. The permit appears valid, but Principal Holloway states you were asked to leave and refused. That's the trespass complaint. I was asked to leave based on an administrative error, their records not reflecting my authorized status. I offered to wait while they verified with my sister. What I refused was vacating immediately, which would have left my 9-year-old niece with no pickup. Holloway stepped forward, having overheard. Sergeant, our policy is clear. When there's any question about authorization, we require the individual to leave and return after verification. School safety takes precedence. Even when the individual has documentation showing authorization, documentation can be forged. We've had incidents. Helena interrupted, her voice carrying a new edge. Are you suggesting I forged a permit issued by your own front office 20 minutes ago? Mrs. Porter can confirm she gave it to me herself. Holloway's expression tightened. I'm suggesting that when staff express concerns about security, we take those concerns seriously. What staff expressed concerns? Helena's question was precise. Mrs. Porter issued my permit without hesitation. Ms. Ramirez confirmed I'm on the approved list. Officer Trudeau arrived before I even entered the building. Who called this in? Fenn consulted his notes. Dispatch log shows the call came in at 15:10. Caller identified as school administration, reporting an unauthorized individual in the visitor lot. Helena's eyes moved to Holloway. At 15:10, I was still inside the front office getting my permit. I didn't return to my car until 15:12. How did someone report me as unauthorized before I even reached the parking lot? The timeline discrepancy hung in the air. Several witnesses exchanged glances. Karen Voss's phone was definitely still recording. Holloway recovered quickly. Security staff monitor the lot continuously. They may have observed you earlier and radioed concerns before you obtained the permit. So your security called police on me before verifying whether I had authorization. Helena's tone remained calm, but the implication was clear. That's profiling. That's caution. Fenn stepped between them. This was getting away from him. The more Helena talked, the more holes appeared in the narrative, and witnesses were documenting all of it. Ma'am, here's the situation. We have a trespass complaint from the property owner. We have an allegation of battery on an officer. Whether those allegations hold up is for the courts to decide. But right now, we're taking you in for processing. Helena looked directly at him. Sergeant, you know this is pretextual. The timeline doesn't support the trespass claim. The body cam won't support the battery allegation. You're arresting me for asking questions and refusing to be intimidated. I'm arresting you based on complaints filed by the school administration and one of my officers. Then I'm formally requesting your name and badge number for my complaint to Internal Affairs. The words landed like a stone in still water. IA complaints were serious business. They triggered reviews, scrutiny, paperwork that could haunt an officer's career. Fenn's expression didn't change. Sergeant Marcus Fenn, badge 2847. You'll receive a copy of the incident report with all relevant information. He gestured to Koval. Officer Koval, please escort Ms. Briggs to the vehicle. Use minimum necessary restraint. Koval approached, handcuffs in hand. Ma'am, I need you to turn around, hands behind your back. Helena complied, her movements slow and deliberate. I'm not resisting. I want that stated clearly for the record. Noted. Koval secured the handcuffs, checking the tightness. Not as aggressive as Trudeau would have been, just tight enough to prevent escape. As Koval guided her toward the cruiser, Helena spoke over her shoulder to Fenn. Sergeant, one more thing. This interaction will be reviewed by people with authority over your department. I suggest you ensure your report is scrupulously accurate. The phrasing was unusual, not threatening, not pleading, just advising, like someone who understood how institutional reviews worked. Fenn watched her settle into the back of the cruiser. Something wasn't adding up. The way she spoke, her composure, the specific legal terms she deployed, and that comment about people with authority. He turned to Trudeau. You're sure about the battery allegation? Because if the body cam contradicts your statement, we've got a problem. Trudeau's jaw set stubbornly. She made contact. That's battery. The cam will show she was aggressive and non-compliant. It better. Fenn pulled out his phone, making a note to review the footage personally before the report was finalized. Because something tells me this woman knows exactly what she's doing. In the cruiser, Helena sat with her hands cuffed behind her, watching through the window as parents collected their children and drove away. Most had already forgotten her face. By tomorrow, this would be gossip. By next week, barely remembered. But the footage would remain. Uploaded to servers, shared across platforms, cached in ways that couldn't be erased. And somewhere in that digital record was the truth that would eventually surface. She just had to survive long enough to present it. The cruiser pulled away from Ridgemont Elementary at 3:47 p.m. Helena sat in the back seat, hands cuffed behind her, the metal digging into her wrists. Koval drove. Trudeau rode passenger, occasionally glancing back through the partition. The vinyl seat smelled of decades of arrested people. Helena kept her breathing steady, eyes forward. Trudeau turned in his seat. You know what happens when people resist? Things get worse. Helena didn't respond. Engaging would only provide ammunition. Silent treatment now? Trudeau's voice carried mockery. Let's see how smart you sound after processing. Koval glanced at him. Kyle, leave it. The drive took 12 minutes. Helena watched familiar streets pass. Her neighborhood, her city, now seen through a cage. They pulled into the station's rear bay at 3:59 p.m. Helena noted the time automatically. Documentation mattered. The booking area was fluorescent bright and sterile. Gray walls, scuffed linoleum, metal benches bolted to the floor. A desk sergeant sat behind reinforced glass. Koval helped Helena out carefully. Watch your head. Thank you, Helena said. They approached the desk. The sergeant, nameplate read Lloyd, looked up. What have we got? Trudeau slid paperwork across. Trespassing, battery on a peace officer, subject non-compliant at scene. Lloyd scanned the forms, then looked at Helena. His expression was professionally neutral. Ma'am, full name. Helena Marie Briggs. Date of birth? November 12, 1976. Lloyd typed, then paused. His eyes moved from the screen to Helena's face. Something had caught his attention. Address? 4127 Oakmont Drive, apartment 4B. More typing. Another pause. Longer. Lloyd's fingers hovered over the keyboard. He clicked through several screens, reading carefully. Trudeau leaned against the counter. Problem, Lloyd? No problem. Lloyd's voice remained neutral. Ma'am, occupation. Helena maintained eye contact. Public service, county employee. Lloyd's eyebrows rose fractionally. He made a note, then reached for a clipboard. "I need to inventory your property," Lloyd said. "Officer Koval, bring her effects." Koval placed Helena's purse, phone, and keys in a plastic tray. Lloyd documented each item methodically. Driver's license, credit cards, insurance card, cash, one notebook. He opened the notebook, flipping through pages. His eyes scanned the neat handwriting, dates, appointments, case references in careful shorthand. Lloyd looked up. "You keep detailed records." "It's necessary for my work," Helena replied. "I deal with complicated schedules." "I can see that." Lloyd closed the notebook carefully, like someone who suspected these pages might matter later. He pulled out a booking form. "Have you been arrested before?" "No." "Any medical conditions? Medications? Injuries?" "No medical conditions. Officer Trudeau's handcuffs are unnecessarily tight. I'd like that documented." Lloyd made a note. He gestured to Koval. "Check the cuff tightness." Koval examined Helena's wrists. "They're snug but not cutting circulation." "I said unnecessarily tight," Helena clarified. "Not dangerous, just excessive given that I'm fully compliant." Lloyd wrote that down verbatim. Most arrestees complained about pain. This woman was making technical observations about appropriate force. "You have the right to one phone call," Lloyd said. "Do you want that now?" "Yes. I need to reach my sister. She's in surgery at County General." Lloyd slid a phone across. 5 minutes. Helena recited the hospital's number from memory. She explained the situation calmly to the operator, asking them to inform Claudia Briggs that her daughter needed pickup and her sister was in custody. No emotion, no drama, just information delivered efficiently. When she hung up, Lloyd was watching her. "You're very composed for someone facing criminal charges." "Panic doesn't help," Helena said, "and I haven't committed any crime." Trudeau interjected. "You assaulted me. That's a crime." Helena turned to face him. "I withdrew my property when you reached into my vehicle without probable cause. Multiple witnesses observed. The body cam will confirm I made no aggressive contact. What you're describing is a false arrest." The precision of her response made Lloyd's eyes narrow. He addressed Trudeau. "The body cam footage has been uploaded?" "Standard upload," Trudeau said. "It'll show everything." "I'm sure it will." Lloyd made another note. Then to Helena. "You mentioned a complaint. Do you want a file now?" "After," Helena said. "I want legal representation present, but I'm stating for the record that this arrest is retaliatory. I filed a Title VI complaint with the school district 3 weeks ago regarding discriminatory treatment. Today's incident is directly related." Lloyd's pen stopped. Title VI complaints were federal civil rights matters. They had teeth. "You filed with the school district?" "Certified mail. Received October 3rd, Helena confirmed. "Tracking number and correspondence are in my phone, which has been seized. I'm requesting all my property be preserved as evidence." Koval shifted. "Kyle, did you know about a prior complaint?" Trudeau's face flushed. "Doesn't matter. She committed a crime today." Lloyd set down his pen. "Actually, it might matter. Ma'am, who did you file with?" "The superintendent's office," Helena said. "Copies sent to Principal Holloway and school board member Victor Lansing." "Nature of the complaint?" "Systematic harassment during authorized visits," Helena replied. "Being stopped repeatedly despite proper documentation. A pattern spanning 6 months." Lloyd wrote quickly. This was no longer simple trespassing. If there was documented harassment and then police were called, that looked like retaliation. "Sergeant, I need to notify my supervisor about this booking." Trudeau straightened. "It's standard processing. Why loop in supervision?" Lloyd met his gaze. "Because this arrest may have complicated implications. I'm not signing off until everything is properly documented." He turned to Helena. "Ma'am, you'll be held until booking is complete. Do you understand your rights?" "I do," Helena said. and I'm invoking my right to remain silent until I have counsel." Lloyd nodded. Smart. Knew when to stop talking. "Officer Koval, escort Ms. Briggs to holding cell 3. As they walked away, Lloyd called after them. "Ms. Briggs?" Helena paused. "The public defender's office will be notified. Someone should be here within 2 hours." "Thank you, Sergeant." Lloyd watched her disappear. Then he picked up his phone and dialed. "This is Sergeant Lloyd, booking. I need Lieutenant Pemberton immediately. We may have a situation." Holding cell 3 was 8 feet by 10. Concrete walls painted institutional beige. A metal bench bolted to one side. A toilet in the corner with no privacy screen. The fluorescent light overhead hummed constantly, a mosquito whine that never stopped. Helena sat on the bench, hands finally uncuffed. She rubbed her wrists where the metal had left red marks. Not deep enough to bruise badly, but visible. She committed the details to memory, another piece of documentation. The cell smelled of disinfectant and something else. Desperation, maybe. Fear absorbed into concrete over decades. She checked her internal clock. 4:23 p.m. Booking had taken 24 minutes. Lloyd had said the public defender would arrive within 2 hours, which meant 6 p.m. at the earliest. Claudia would have gotten the message by now. Zoe was probably with a neighbor or still at school with staff. Her niece's terrified face kept replaying in her mind. The way Zoe had screamed. The way she'd tried to run to Helena despite the uniforms blocking her path. 9 years old and learning that authority didn't always mean safety. Footsteps approached in the corridor. Helena looked up as a figure appeared at the cell bars. Not Koval or Lloyd, but a different officer. Younger. Muscular build. His nameplate read Garrett. He studied her through the bars. "So you're the one who thinks she can assault cops and walk away?" Helena didn't respond. She'd invoked her right to silence. Anything she said now could be twisted. Garrett unlocked the cell door and stepped inside. "I asked you a question." "I've invoked my right to remain silent until counsel is present." "That's cute." Garrett moved closer, using his size to intimidate. "You think lawyers are going to save you? You put your hands on Trudeau. That's a felony." Helena remained seated, keeping her posture neutral. "I made no aggressive contact with Officer Trudeau. The body cam footage will confirm that." "Body cam?" Garrett laughed. "You know how many times body cam footage gets corrupted, equipment malfunctions, files accidentally deleted? Happens all the time." Helena's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice level. "Tampering with evidence is a federal crime." "Who said anything about tampering?" Garrett leaned against the wall, blocking the cell door. "I'm just saying technology fails. Meanwhile, you've got 2 officers who witnessed you get violent. Their word against yours." He was fishing, trying to provoke a reaction, or get her to say something useful for their case. Helena met his gaze steadily. "I'm not having this conversation without legal representation." Garrett pushed off the wall, taking 2 steps closer. "Stand up when I'm talking to you." "I don't have to stand. I'm complying with all lawful orders. If you have a legitimate reason for me to stand, state it clearly." His face flushed. "I said stand up." Helena remained seated. This was a test. See if she'd comply with arbitrary commands, establish dominance, maybe provoke her into something they could call resisting. "Unless there's a security reason, I'm going to remain seated. I'm not required to stand simply because you've given an order without legal basis." Garrett moved fast. He grabbed her upper arm, yanking her to her feet with unnecessary force. Helena's shoulder wrenched, not dislocated but painful. She didn't pull away, didn't struggle, but she did speak clearly, projecting her voice toward the corridor where other cells might have occupants. "Officer Garrett is using excessive force. I am not resisting. There are visible marks on my arm where he grabbed me." "Shut up," Garrett hissed. He shoved her back against the wall, not hard enough to cause serious injury, but hard enough to hurt. Helena's back hit concrete. She kept her hands visible at her sides, palms open. Every instinct screamed at her to defend herself, to use the training she had, but that would only make things worse. "I am not resisting. You are assaulting a compliant detainee. This interaction is being documented." "By who?" Garrett's face was inches from hers. "You think anyone cares what happens in here?" A voice came from the corridor. "I care." Garrett spun. Lieutenant Grace Pemberton stood outside the cell, her expression unreadable. She was in her late 40s, gray streaking through dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform was crisp, her posture rigid. "Officer Garrett, step away from the detainee." Garrett released Helena and backed toward the cell door. "Lieutenant, You were just leaving," Pemberton interrupted. "Report to Sergeant Lloyd. Tell him I want a copy of your service record on my desk in 10 minutes. Ma'am, this woman assaulted—" "Out, now!" Garrett left, his boots heavy against the linoleum. Pemberton waited until the sound faded, then turned her attention to Helena. "Ms. Briggs, are you injured?" Helena rotated her shoulder carefully. "Bruised, but nothing requiring medical attention. You want to file a complaint about Officer Garrett's conduct?" "Yes, but I'm waiting for legal counsel before making any formal statements." Pemberton nodded slowly. Smart. She consulted a tablet she'd been carrying. "I reviewed your booking information. You filed a Title VI complaint 3 weeks ago. Today you were arrested at the location of that complaint. That's concerning timing." Helena said nothing, waiting to see where this was going. "I also reviewed the dispatch log. The 911 call came in at 15:10. You obtained your visitor permit at 15:12. Someone called police before verifying your authorization status." "That suggests premeditation," Helena said carefully. "Someone wanted police presence regardless of whether I had legitimate reason to be there." Pemberton's expression remained neutral. "That's one interpretation. Another is that security was being cautious. Cautious would be verifying first, then calling if there was an actual problem. Calling first suggests the goal wasn't verification, it was removal." Pemberton's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but acknowledgement. "You're very articulate for someone who works in public service. My job requires clear communication." "I'm sure it does." Pemberton made a note on her tablet. "The Public Defender's Office has been notified. Someone should be here by 6. Until then, you'll remain in this cell. I'm instructing the officers to observe through the window only. No one enters without my authorization." "Thank you, Lieutenant," Helena said. "May I ask, how did you know to come down here?" "Sergeant Lloyd flagged your booking as potentially complicated. When the name came through our system, it triggered some alerts." She paused. "You've made an impression on people. I've tried to do my job ethically. Sometimes that creates friction." "Clearly." Pemberton closed her tablet. "One more thing, Ms. Briggs. Whatever you're doing, whatever game you think you're playing, be careful. Not everyone on this force is interested in following the rules. I've noticed." Pemberton left without another word. The cell door clanged shut, the lock engaging with mechanical finality. Helena sat back down on the bench, her shoulder throbbing where Garrett had grabbed her. She rolled it slowly, testing the range of motion. Painful, but functional. She'd had worse. The encounter had confirmed something she'd suspected. There were fault lines in the department. Lloyd had flagged her case. Pemberton had intervened. Not everyone was aligned with Trudeau's approach. That meant leverage. If she played this correctly. Voices drifted from another cell. A woman crying softly, another voice trying to comfort her. Helena wondered how many people sat in cells like this one, waiting for justice that moved too slowly or never came at all. She leaned back against the cold concrete. Her body was tired, but her mind stayed sharp. Cataloging, documenting, building the case she'd present when the time came. Garrett's assault would be added to the list. The timing of the 911 call. Pemberton's admission that the booking had triggered system alerts. Lloyd's careful documentation. Koval's reluctance to support Trudeau's version. Each piece was small, but together they formed a pattern, and patterns were exactly what she needed. Footsteps approached again. Different rhythm. A woman in a gray pantsuit appeared at the cell bars, carrying a leather briefcase. Early 30s, sharp eyes. Dark hair pulled into a professional twist. "Ms. Briggs?" Her voice was crisp. "I'm Naomi Chen from the Public Defender's Office. I'm here to represent you." Helena stood, moving to the bars. "Thank you for coming." Chen pulled out a notepad. "I've reviewed the preliminary charges, trespassing and battery on a peace officer. But Sergeant Lloyd's notes mention a prior Title VI complaint and some timeline discrepancies. Walk me through everything, from the beginning." Helena took a breath. This was it, the moment to start building her defense, to transform scattered pieces into a coherent narrative that would withstand scrutiny. 3 weeks ago, I filed a formal complaint with Oakmont School District regarding systematic harassment. Naomi Chen sat across from Helena in the attorney consultation room, a windowless box with a metal table bolted to the floor and 2 plastic chairs. She'd spread her notes across the surface, pen poised, recording device visible between them. "Let me make sure I understand the timeline," Chen said. "You arrived at Ridgemont Elementary at 2:52 p.m., went to the front office at 3. Mrs. Porter issued your visitor permit at 3:07. You returned to your car at 3:09. Officers arrived at 3:12. Helena nodded. "That's correct. But according to the dispatch log," Chen consulted her notes, "the 911 call came in at 3:10, which means someone reported you as an unauthorized individual before you'd even been back in your car for 60 seconds. Someone reported me before verifying whether I had authorization. That's not security protocol. That's targeting." Chen made a note. "Principal Holloway claims security staff observed you in the lot earlier and had concerns before you obtained the permit." "I pulled into the lot at 2:52, Helena said. "I was inside the building obtaining authorization from 3 to 3:09. If security had concerns during those 9 minutes, they could have walked 20 feet to the front office and asked Mrs. Porter directly. Instead, they called 911, which suggests they weren't interested in verification," Helena finished. "They were interested in creating a police presence." Chen leaned back, studying Helena carefully. "Miss Briggs, I've been a public defender for 7 years. I've seen every kind of client. Most people in your situation are either scared, angry, or both. You're neither. You're methodical. Fear and anger cloud judgment. I need clarity right now." "That's the thing." Chen tapped her pen against her notepad. "You talk like someone who's been through legal proceedings before, not as a defendant, as someone who understands how cases are built." Helena met her gaze steadily. "I've had to learn. My job requires understanding process. Public service." "Yes," Chen let it drop. "All right, let's talk about the battery allegation. Officer Trudeau claims you struck his hand when he attempted to secure your recording device. What actually happened?" Helena spoke precisely. "I activated my phone's voice recording app and placed it on my dashboard, screen visible. Officer Trudeau ordered me to turn it off. I informed him that recording a public official in a public space is legal. He reached through my open window toward my phone. I pulled the phone back toward my chest, away from his reach. Our hands may have brushed during that motion. Incidental contact, not aggressive." "And there were witnesses?" "At least 15 parents. Several were recording on their own phones. Karen Voss was particularly vocal in my defense. Ms. Ramirez, a teacher, also witnessed the interaction." Chen wrote quickly. "Those witnesses will be crucial. But here's the problem. Officer Koval's preliminary statement supports Trudeau's version. She describes you as agitated and non-compliant. Officer Koval told Sergeant Fenn at the scene that she didn't observe me strike anyone. I heard her say it. Check the audio from his body cam. Chen's eyebrows rose. You're confident the body cam will help your case? I'm confident it will show the truth, Helena said. Trudeau reached into my vehicle first. I withdrew. That's defensive action, not assault. Okay, let's assume the body cam supports your version. That addresses the battery charge. But the trespassing is equally baseless, Helena interrupted. I had written authorization. I provided documentation. I was in a designated visitor space. The only reason I was asked to leave was administrative error on the school's part. Error they refused to correct by simply checking their own records. Chen consulted another document. Your Title VI complaint from 3 weeks ago. Tell me about that. Helena recounted the pattern methodically. Security guard Morrison stopping her repeatedly. Mr. Gavin's condescending questions at the parent-teacher conference. Being directed to inferior parking spaces. The escalating scrutiny despite 6 months of authorized pickups. And you documented all of this? Chen asked. Dates, times, names, Helena confirmed. I submitted a formal complaint via certified mail. Tracking shows it was signed for by the superintendent's office on October 3rd. That's unusually thorough documentation for a routine complaint. I believe in having evidence to support claims, Helena said simply. Chen made more notes, then looked up. Here's what I'm seeing. Strong timeline evidence suggesting premeditation. Multiple witnesses to the actual incident. A prior complaint establishing a pattern of harassment. And body cam footage that should contradict the officer's statements. So what's the problem? The problem is politics, Chen said. The school district has influence. The police union will protect its officers, and you're, forgive me for being blunt, a single black woman going up against institutional power. Even with good evidence, this could get ugly. It's already ugly. My 9-year-old niece watched me get arrested. She's traumatized. Chen's expression softened. I understand, and we will fight this. But I need you to understand the stakes. They're going to come at you hard. Background checks, character assassination. They'll look for anything to discredit you. Let them look. I have nothing to hide. Everyone has something, Chen said. The question is whether it's relevant. A knock interrupted them. Sergeant Lloyd appeared in the doorway. Miss Chen, we've pulled the body cam footage. It's available for review if you'd like to see it before arraignment. Chen stood. Absolutely. Ms. Briggs, I'll be back in 30 minutes. After she left, Helena sat alone in the consultation room. The walls were thin enough to hear activity in the corridor. Officers talking, phones ringing, the constant hum of bureaucratic machinery. She closed her eyes, replaying the parking lot confrontation in her mind. Every word, every movement, the placement of witnesses, the angle of Trudeau's body cam when he'd reached for her phone. If she was right about the camera angle, the footage would show his arm extending into her vehicle first, would show her pulling back, would prove she'd made no aggressive contact. If she was wrong, if the angle had been obscured, or if the footage had been edited, this became much harder. But she had to trust the process. Trust that evidence would speak louder than lies. 23 years had taught her that truth mattered. It didn't always win immediately. Sometimes it took time. Sometimes it required patience and precise documentation and refusing to give up. But it mattered. Footsteps approached. Chen returned, her expression carefully neutral. She sat down across from Helena and folded her hands on the table. I reviewed the body cam footage from both Trudeau and Koval. All 14 minutes and 37 seconds. Helena waited, reading Chen's face for signals. It's good for us, Chen said finally. Very good. The camera clearly shows Trudeau reaching into your vehicle, shows you pulling your phone away. At no point does your hand make aggressive contact with him. It's textbook defensive withdrawal. Relief flooded through Helena, but she kept her voice steady. So the battery charge should be dropped. Should be, Chen agreed. But there's something else. Something unusual. Unusual how? Chen pulled out her tablet, calling up notes. The timestamp on Trudeau's body cam shows 15:17:43 when he reaches for your phone. The timestamp on his incident report, the one claiming you struck him, lists the assault at 15:18:12. 29 seconds later. So there's a discrepancy. More than a discrepancy, Chen said. The body cam shows the entire interaction lasting 17 seconds total. From initial reach to you stating, "I did not strike you," takes exactly 17 seconds. There's no 29-second gap where an assault could have occurred. Helena leaned forward. Someone altered the timeline in the report, or made a mistake transcribing, Chen said carefully. But combined with everything else, the 911 call coming before verification, the prior Title VI complaint, the witness statements contradicting the officers, it suggests a pattern. A pattern of what? Chen met her eyes. Of people trying very hard to make a narrative fit facts that don't support it. Detective Anya Reyes sat in her internal affairs office, 3 monitors glowing in the dim light. It was past 7 p.m. Most of the building had emptied hours ago. But Lloyd's call about a complicated booking had triggered her instinct, the one that told her when something wasn't right. She pulled up the incident report filed by Trudeau. Standard language. Subject refused to comply with lawful orders. Subject made aggressive movements toward officer. Subject struck officer's hand during attempt to secure evidence. Then she opened the body cam footage side by side. Watched it once at normal speed, then again at quarter speed, noting every detail. At 15:17:43, Trudeau's arm extended through the vehicle window. His hand reached toward the phone on the dashboard. At 15:17:47, 4 seconds later, Helena's hand moved, pulling the phone toward her chest. At 15:17:51, Trudeau withdrew his arm. No strike. No aggressive contact. Reyes made notes. The body cam contradicted the written report in multiple ways. Not interpretation differences, clear factual discrepancies. She pulled up the 911 call audio. Listened to Principal Holloway's voice, clipped and certain. Oakmont County 911, what's your emergency? Holloway's response. This is Principal Diane Holloway at Ridgemont Elementary. We have an unauthorized individual in our visitor parking lot who's refusing to leave. Is the individual threatening anyone? Not explicitly, but she has a confrontational demeanor, and we've had issues with her before. Reyes paused the recording. Had issues with her before. That suggested a history. She pulled up the school district's complaint log through their public records portal. Helena Briggs's name appeared once. Title VI complaint, filed September 29th, received October 3rd. Subject: pattern of discriminatory treatment during authorized school visits. Reyes clicked through to the complaint details. 6 months of documented incidents. Security guard Morrison stopping Helena repeatedly despite valid permits. Principal Holloway questioning her relationship to the student. Teacher Mr. Gavin dismissing her presence at conferences. The complaint had been forwarded to school board member Victor Lansing for review. His response, dated October 7th, was bureaucratically dismissive. The district takes all concerns seriously, but must balance individual accommodation with institutional security protocols. Translation: we hear you, but we're doing nothing. Reyes cross-referenced the dates. Complaint filed September 29th, received October 3rd, reviewed October 7th, Helena arrested October 21st, exactly 14 days after the board's non-response. She made more notes. Timeline suggested retaliation. Federal civil rights law prohibited retaliating against individuals who filed discrimination complaints. If the arrest was linked to the complaint, that opened serious liability. A knock on her door. Sergeant Lloyd stood in the hallway looking tired. Thought I'd find you here, Lloyd said. The Briggs case? Reyes nodded. Walk me through your interaction with her during booking. Lloyd settled into the chair across from her desk. Calm. Very calm. Most people getting arrested are either belligerent or scared. She was neither. Answered questions precisely, knew her rights, invoked counsel at exactly the right moment. Anything else stand out? When I pulled her name in the system, something flagged. Not a criminal flag, something else. But by the time I got through the booking screens, the alert had cleared. Reyes's eyes narrowed. What kind of alert? That's the thing. Lloyd spread his hands. I don't know. It was there for maybe 3 seconds. Red banner across the top of the screen. Then gone. I tried to pull it back up, couldn't access it. That's unusual. That's why I called Pemberton, Lloyd said. Something about this woman is triggering system responses I've never seen before. And Trudeau's report doesn't match the body cam. Add in the Title VI complaint, and we've got a mess. Reyes turned back to her monitors. I'm going to pull all records related to Ridgemont Elementary arrests for the past 2 years. See if there's a pattern. You think this isn't isolated? I think any time a school calls 911 before verifying authorization, it's worth investigating whether they've done it before. Lloyd stood. Reyes, be careful. School board members have friends in high places. You start digging into district practices, you'll make enemies. I'm internal affairs, Reyes said. Making enemies is part of the job description. After Lloyd left, Reyes opened a new search. All arrests within 1 mile of Ridgemont Elementary past 24 months, filtered for trespassing charges. 14 results appeared. She opened each one, scanning for patterns. Case 23-CR-4471. Black male, age 34. Arrested for trespassing during school pickup. Charges dropped. Found to be authorized guardian. Case 23-CR-5892. Black female, age 41. Arrested for trespassing at school event. Charges dropped. Had purchased ticket. Case 24-CR-1205. Hispanic male, age 28. Arrested for trespassing in school parking lot. Charges dropped. Was waiting for wife who worked at school. Reyes felt her stomach tighten. A pattern was emerging. 14 arrests, all people of color, all at or near the school. Charges dropped in 13 cases, meaning they'd been wrongful arrests. Only one case had resulted in conviction. Case 23-CR-7744. The defendant had taken a plea deal rather than fight the charges. She pulled up the school district's demographic data. Ridgemont Elementary. 73% white students, 12% black, 9% Hispanic, 6% other. Surrounding neighborhood, similar demographics, but 100% of the trespassing arrests were people of color. That wasn't random variation. That was targeting. Reyes pulled up email logs next, using her IA access to request correspondence between Ridgemont administration and the police department. Public officials' work emails were subject to records requests. Most people forgot that. The logs loaded. Hundreds of messages between Principal Holloway and various officers over 2 years. She filtered for keywords: security, concern, unauthorized, suspicious. 47 emails appeared. Reyes began reading. June 12, 2023. Holloway to Officer Martinez. Security reports an individual of interest in the pickup area. Black male, approximately 30s, observing children. Can you send a unit? August 3, 2023. Holloway to Sergeant Fenn. Another incident with non-resident attempting to access campus. Hispanic female claims to be picking up niece but raised concerns with staff. March 15, 2024. Holloway to Officer Trudeau. The woman I mentioned last week returned today. Same aggressive attitude. Thought you should be aware. The March email caught Reyes's attention. She checked the date against Helena's school visit log. Helena had picked up Zoe on March 13th, 2 days before Holloway's email to Trudeau. She pulled up more emails. Found a thread between Holloway and school board member Victor Lansing. October 8, 2024, Holloway to Lansing. The Title VI complaint you forwarded. The woman was here again today. Morrison reports she was monitoring his movements and appeared to be documenting interactions. Should we be concerned about litigation? October 9, 2024, Lansing to Holloway. Document everything. If she returns, ensure security protocols are strictly enforced. Consider coordinating with local PD if she becomes disruptive. There it was. Coordination between the school board and the recommendation to involve police. 12 days before Helena's arrest. Reyes sat back, processing. This wasn't just one bad arrest. It was systematic. A school administration using law enforcement to remove people they deemed problematic, and law enforcement complying without questioning whether the removals were justified. She pulled up Helena's visitor permit application from today. Submitted at 3 p.m. Approved and issued at 3:07 p.m. by Mrs. Porter, attendance clerk. Standard 7-minute processing time. Then she pulled the 911 call timestamp. 3:10 p.m., 3 minutes after the permit was issued. Someone had called police while Helena was still inside the building getting authorized. That wasn't security protocol. That was a setup. Reyes began typing her preliminary report. She documented the body cam discrepancies, the email trail, the pattern of arrests, the timeline contradictions. Every piece carefully sourced, every claim backed by evidence. This would go to the Attorney General's office. Maybe the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. This was bigger than one arrest, bigger than one school. This was institutional discrimination with police as enforcers. Her phone buzzed. Text from Pemberton. Briggs made bail. Attorney filed motion to dismiss. Hearing set for Friday 9 a.m. Reyes typed back. I'll have my preliminary findings ready. This case needs elevation. She looked at the screens filled with evidence. Somewhere in this mess was a woman who'd been doing everything right. Following rules, documenting incidents, using official channels to seek redress. And the system had responded by arresting her in front of her traumatized niece. Reyes had joined IA because she believed in accountability, believed that good cops should be protected and bad ones removed. Cases like this reminded her why that mattered. She saved her files, backed them up to 3 separate locations. Then she began the process of formally requesting federal oversight. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Friday morning arrived with gray skies. Helena sat in the courthouse waiting area, wearing the same blazer she'd been arrested in 3 days ago. Naomi Chen sat beside her, reviewing notes one final time. The motion to dismiss hearing starts in 10 minutes. Judge Pritchard will preside. He's fair, but he follows procedure strictly. Helena nodded. She knew Alan Pritchard. Had worked cases alongside him for 15 years before he'd transferred to criminal court. But Chen didn't need to know that yet. They'll argue the charges have merit, Chen continued. We'll present the body cam evidence, witness statements, and the timeline discrepancies. With luck, he dismisses with prejudice and we're done. With luck, the courtroom doors opened. They entered together, Helena's heels clicking against marble floors. The room was smaller than she usually worked in, criminal motions court, designed for quick procedural hearings rather than full trials. Trudeau sat in the gallery, arms crossed. Beside him, Sergeant Fenn whispered something that made him scowl. Principal Holloway had claimed a scheduling conflict, conspicuously absent. The prosecutor was a junior assistant DA named Marcus Webb. Fresh out of law school, probably handed this case as routine work. He shuffled papers nervously as they approached the defense table. "All rise," the bailiff announced. "The Honorable Judge Alan Pritchard presiding." Pritchard entered from his chambers. Late 50s, silver hair, sharp eyes that missed nothing. He settled behind the bench and reviewed the file before him. Case number 24-CR8847, People versus Helena Briggs. Motion to dismiss filed by the defense. Mr. Webb, you may proceed. Webb stood. Your Honor, the people opposed dismissal. The defendant was arrested following a legitimate trespassing complaint from school administration and an assault on Officer Kyle Trudeau. While the defense has raised procedural questions, the underlying conduct justifies prosecution. Pritchard made a note. Ms. Chen stood, projecting confidence. Your Honor, this case should never have been filed. The so-called trespassing occurred while my client had valid authorization documented in writing. The alleged assault is contradicted by body cam footage showing Officer Trudeau initiating physical contact. She approached the bench with a USB drive. I've prepared a compilation of relevant evidence. Body cam footage, witness statements, dispatch logs showing timeline inconsistencies. Pritchard accepted the drive, handing it to his clerk. We'll review that. But first, I have questions for the prosecution. Mr. Webb, the charging documents list the defendant as Helena Briggs, occupation, public service. Can you be more specific about her employment? Webb consulted his file. The arresting officers reported she works for the county, Your Honor. No additional details were provided. The county has many departments. Which one? I don't have that information, Webb admitted. The booking report lists public service without specification. Pritchard turned his attention to Helena. Ms. Briggs, perhaps you can clarify for the court. What is your specific position with the county? This was it, the moment Helena had been waiting for. She stood slowly, meeting Pritchard's eyes. Your Honor, I serve as a circuit court judge for the 9th District. The courtroom went dead silent. Webb's papers slipped from his hands, scattering across the prosecution table. Trudeau half rose from his seat, face draining of color. Fenn grabbed his arm, pulling him back down. Chen turned to look at Helena, her expression caught between shock and vindication. She'd suspected something, but not this. Pritchard's face remained neutral, but his knuckles whitened as he gripped his pen. Judge Helena Briggs, Circuit Court. Yes, Your Honor. I've served in that capacity for 23 years. Webb found his voice, though it cracked. Your Honor, the booking report made no mention. The defendant never identified herself as— I identified myself as a county employee in public service, Helena interrupted. Which is accurate. I also provided my driver's license, which lists my full legal name. It's not my responsibility to ensure arresting officers conduct adequate background checks before filing charges. Pritchard set down his pen with deliberate care. Mr. Webb, approach the bench. Ms. Chen, you as well. The three conferred in whispers for nearly a minute. Helena remained standing, aware of every eye on her. Trudeau looked like he might be sick. Fenn had his phone out, typing frantically, probably alerting his superiors. Pritchard returned to his microphone. The court will take a 15-minute recess while I review the submitted evidence. Bailiff, ensure all parties remain available. He stood and exited quickly. The moment he disappeared, chaos erupted. Webb rushed from the courtroom, phone already at his ear, probably calling his supervisor to explain how he'd just prosecuted a sitting judge for crimes she didn't commit. Trudeau pushed toward the exit, but Fenn blocked him. Sit down. Running makes it worse. Chen turned to Helena. Judge Briggs, you're a circuit court judge. I am. And you didn't think to mention this earlier? I wanted the evidence to speak for itself. If I'd led with my title, everything after would have been viewed through that lens. This way, the facts stand independent of who I am. Chen sat down slowly. You just played the best legal card I've ever seen. But you realize this is going to explode. I'm counting on it. In the gallery, Trudeau was arguing with Fenn in harsh whispers. "How was I supposed to know? She never said—" "You never asked," Fenn hissed back. "You saw a black woman and assumed. That's the problem." Detective Reyes slipped into the courtroom through the back entrance. Helena caught her eye. Reyes nodded once. A silent communication. The IA investigation had progressed. More evidence was ready. The 15 minutes stretched to 25. When Pritchard returned, his expression was grave. "I've reviewed the body cam footage, dispatch logs, and preliminary witness statements. Mr. Webb, does the prosecution wish to proceed with these charges?" Webb stood on shaky legs. "Your Honor, in light of new information, the people request time to reassess our position." "New information? Judge Briggs's identity doesn't change the facts. Either she committed trespassing and battery, or she didn't." "Does the body cam footage support the battery allegation?" "The footage shows contact between the defendant and Officer Trudeau, but the characterization of that contact is subject to interpretation." "Mr. Webb," Pritchard's voice carried steel, "I've watched the footage 5 times. Officer Trudeau reached into Judge Briggs's vehicle. She withdrew her property. At no point did she strike, push, or make aggressive contact with him. There is no interpretation. There is only what the camera recorded." "Your Honor, as for the trespassing charge," Pritchard continued, "Judge Briggs possessed written authorization issued by school staff. The 911 call was placed before that authorization could be verified. The sequence of events suggests the arrest was predetermined, not based on actual violations." He looked directly at Trudeau. "Officer Trudeau, stand." Trudeau rose slowly, his uniform suddenly seeming too tight. "Yes, Your Honor." "Did you know Judge Briggs's identity when you arrested her?" "No, sir, she never—" "Did you ask for identification?" "I took her license." "Did you run a background check beyond criminal warrants?" Trudeau hesitated. "Standard procedure is to check for warrants and outstanding—" "Answer the question, yes or no." "No, Your Honor. I did not run a full background check." Pritchard made a note. "Officer Trudeau, you arrested a circuit court judge on false charges in front of witnesses, including a traumatized child. You filed a report that body cam footage directly contradicts. You confiscated her property without probable cause, and you did all of this without basic due diligence." The words hung in the air like an indictment. "Mr. Webb, the prosecution has 30 seconds to decide whether to proceed or withdraw these charges." Webb looked at Helena, then at Trudeau, then at the evidence file. "The people move to dismiss all charges, Your Honor." "With prejudice?" "Yes, Your Honor, with prejudice." Pritchard's gavel came down. "Motion granted. All charges against Judge Helena Briggs are dismissed with prejudice. The defendant is free to go." He paused, then added, "I'm also referring this matter to the Attorney General's office for investigation into potential civil rights violations, abuse of process, and filing of false reports. This court stands in recess." The gavel struck again. Final. Absolute. Helena remained standing as Pritchard exited. Around her, the courtroom erupted in whispered conversations. Chen was already on her phone, probably alerting media contacts. Reyes approached the defense table. "Judge Briggs, I'm Detective Anya Reyes, Internal Affairs. I need to speak with you about my preliminary findings." Helena nodded. "I have information to share as well." Trudeau pushed past them toward the exit. Fenn caught his arm. "Not yet. We're going straight to IA for questioning." As they left, Helena heard Trudeau's voice, cracking with desperation. "This is going to ruin me." Fenn's response was quiet but clear. "You ruined yourself." The grand jury hearing room held 23 citizens in tiered seating. Helena sat at the witness table, facing Assistant Attorney General Torres at the prosecutor's podium. "Judge Briggs, please state your occupation for the record," Torres said. Circuit Court Judge, 9th District, 23 years, Helena replied. Torres displayed body cam footage on screens. October 21st, 15:17:43. What do we see? Officer Trudeau's arm extends into my vehicle, Helena narrated. His hand reaches toward my phone. And at 15:17:47, I pull my phone back, defensive withdrawal. Torres paused the video. Does Judge Briggs strike or make aggressive contact with Officer Trudeau? No, Helena said. Yet his report claims assault at 15:18:12, 29 seconds after this video shows the interaction ended. Torres let that sink in. Someone invented time that doesn't exist. A juror raised her hand. Judge Briggs, why didn't you identify yourself? Wouldn't that have stopped everything? Helena had expected this. I made a calculated decision. If I'd used my title immediately, the response would have been about my position, not the facts. I wanted to document how any citizen would be treated. And how were you treated? Like a criminal, Helena said simply. Despite authorization, despite compliance, despite committing no crime. Torres called his next witness. Principal Diane Holloway. Holloway entered with her attorney, sitting rigidly after taking the oath. Torres began gently. You called 911 at 15:10, reporting an unauthorized individual, correct? Yes, we take security seriously, Holloway said. Judge Briggs obtained her permit at 15:07, 3 minutes before your call. Torres displayed the permit. Signed by your attendance clerk. Why call police before verifying with your own staff? Holloway's attorney whispered to her. Security staff had concerns about Ms. Briggs's previous demeanor. Ms. Briggs, Torres repeated. Not Judge Briggs. But you were aware she'd filed a Title VI complaint 3 weeks earlier. Torres produced the complaint. This was sent to you directly. You forwarded it to board member Lansing expressing concern about litigation. Holloway's jaw tightened. I don't recall that specific email. Torres displayed it on screen. October 8th, from you to Lansing. The woman was here again today. Should we be concerned about litigation? You're expressing concern about Judge Briggs exercising legal rights. I was protecting the school. By calling police on someone who'd done nothing wrong? Torres's voice gained edge. Who you then had arrested in front of her traumatized niece. Holloway's attorney intervened. My client followed security protocols. Protocols that resulted in 14 wrongful arrests of people of color over 2 years, Torres interrupted. All at Ridgemont. All dismissed. That's not security, that's discrimination. He turned to the jurors. You've seen body cam footage contradicting the arrest report. Email trails showing coordination. A pattern of targeting minority visitors. And testimony from a sitting judge subjected to this treatment despite following every rule. Does probable cause exist to believe these defendants violated Judge Briggs's civil rights under color of law? The evidence speaks. Holloway was excused quickly. Her earlier confidence had evaporated. The final witness was Officer Trudeau. He entered without his uniform, suspended pending investigation. His face was drawn, aged years in 3 weeks. Torres began without preamble. Officer Trudeau, you filed a report stating Judge Briggs assaulted you. Do you stand by that? Trudeau glanced at his union representative. The situation was fluid. Things happened fast. Yes or no? Did Judge Briggs strike you? Long pause. The room held its breath. Contact was made. Contact, Torres repeated. The body cam shows her pulling her phone from your reaching hand. Is defensive withdrawal assault? Trudeau's face flushed. She was non-compliant, aggressive in demeanor. Aggressive how? By stating her rights, by asking for probable cause, by legally recording you. She refused to cooperate. She provided ID, registration, authorization, Torres interrupted. She answered every question. She complied with every lawful order. What she refused was to be bullied. Trudeau said nothing. His hands clenched. Torres addressed the jury. Officer Trudeau arrested a circuit court judge on false charges, filed a report contradicted by his own body cam, coordinated with officials who'd received a discrimination complaint. He retaliated against a protected civil rights complainant. The law is clear. Deprivation of rights under color of authority is a federal crime. The evidence supports that charge. The foreman raised his hand. Mr. Torres, we've heard enough. The jury would like to deliberate. Torres nodded. The jury is excused. The grand jury deliberated for 47 minutes. Helena waited in a witness room with Naomi Chen and Detective Reyes. However this goes, you've already won, Chen said. The story's out. The pattern's exposed. They'll indict, Helena said. The evidence is overwhelming. Reyes looked up from her phone. Pemberton's placing Trudeau on unpaid leave. The department's reviewing all Ridgemont arrests. About time. A bailiff knocked. They're ready. The foreman stood, holding a single sheet. On the charge of deprivation of rights under color of law against Officer Kyle Trudeau, we find probable cause. True bill. Helena's shoulders dropped slightly. Justice. Finally. Against Principal Diane Holloway, probable cause exists. True bill. Against school board member Victor Lansing, probable cause exists. True bill. 3 for 3. Torres accepted the indictment documents. Thank you for your service, he said. These will be filed with Federal District Court. Arrest warrants will be issued. As jurors filed out, several looked at Helena. One woman mouthed, "Thank you." Another nodded with respect. Outside, media had gathered. News crews, reporters, cameras forming a gauntlet. Helena approached the microphones alone. "My name is Helena Briggs. I'm a circuit court judge," she began. 3 weeks ago, I was arrested picking up my 9-year-old niece, handcuffed, charged with crimes I didn't commit, because I'd filed a discrimination complaint. Today, a federal grand jury indicted 3 individuals for violating my civil rights. But this isn't just about me. It's about 47 others arrested at that school. About systematic discrimination disguised as security. About using law enforcement to punish people for being black or brown in spaces where others decided we don't belong. She paused. I'm a judge. I have resources, knowledge, connections. Most victims don't. They take plea deals because they can't afford to fight. That stops now. To everyone who's been harassed, profiled, arrested for existing in public spaces, document everything. File complaints. Demand accountability. The system won't fix itself. We have to force it. A reporter called out, "Will you return to the bench?" Helena smiled slightly. I never left. I've got a full docket waiting. What about Officer Trudeau and Principal Holloway? They'll face justice through proper channels, Helena said, just like any other defendants. She stepped back from the microphones. Chen and Reyes flanked her toward a waiting car. In the car, Helena leaned back, closing her eyes. 3 weeks ago, handcuffed in a parking lot. Now, federal charges filed. Chen's phone buzzed. DOJ's expanding the investigation to all 7 flagged schools. Federal oversight for involved districts. Reyes added, State legislature calling emergency hearings on school police coordination. 1 case, Helena murmured. Look what happened. Because you documented everything, Chen said. Because you refused to be intimidated. Helena opened her eyes, watching the city pass. Somewhere, Zoe was at school. Somewhere, Claudia was saving lives. Somewhere, other families navigated systems designed to exclude them. The work isn't done. No, Reyes agreed, but it started. The car pulled up to the courthouse. Her chambers waited, case files, motions, the daily business of justice that couldn't stop. She stepped out, straightening her blazer. Tomorrow she'd be back on the bench. Today, she'd watch the system, finally, begin to work. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. Monday morning arrived with autumn rain. Helena pushed through the courthouse doors at 7:45 a.m. Her chambers on the 4th floor felt both familiar and foreign. Same desk, same files. But everything looked different now. Her clerk, David Chen, stood when she entered. "Welcome back, Your Honor." Helena set down her briefcase. "What's on the docket?" 3 motions to suppress, 2 sentencing hearings, and, he hesitated, a recusal motion in State v. Martinez. Defense argues your recent experience might bias you in police misconduct cases. Of course they do. I already drafted a response, David said. Figured they'd try this. Helena smiled slightly. Good clerks anticipated problems. At noon, Detective Reyes appeared. Your Honor, an update on the federal investigation. They moved to the private conference room. Reyes spread documents across the table. DOJ released preliminary findings. Trudeau and Holloway suspended without pay. Lansing resigned. That's the official story. What's really happening? Reyes pulled out her tablet. Trudeau's union hired a crisis firm. Holloway's claiming she followed district policy. And Lansing's lawyers are negotiating a cooperation agreement. Helena's eyes narrowed. He's offering to testify? That's what sources suggest, Reyes said. But here's the interesting part. When we pulled email records, several threads were heavily redacted. School district IT claims technical limitations. Emails don't just disappear. Exactly. Reyes displayed a partially visible message. This is from Lansing to someone whose address is blocked out. Subject: Ridgemont Protocol Implementation. Body is mostly redacted except this fragment. As discussed with redacted, the quarterly metrics justify continued coordination. Helena leaned forward. Quarterly metrics. That's not security language. That's performance measurement. Right. Which suggests someone was tracking something quantifiable. Arrest numbers, maybe. Who has authority to redact discovery emails? Helena asked. District Superintendent's Office, Reyes said. But Superintendent Park claims she never authorized it. Someone with IT access made the decision unilaterally. Helena studied the partial message. That's not how bureaucracies work. Someone gave an order. Which is why the investigation isn't closed, Reyes confirmed. DOJ's expanding scope to include obstruction, but it'll take months. After Reyes left, Helena sat alone. 3 indicted, several suspended. But someone was still hiding, someone important enough to redact federal evidence. Her phone buzzed. Text from Claudia. Can we talk tonight? About Zoe. That evening, Helena arrived at Claudia's apartment with takeout. Zoe was in her room, door closed, music playing softly. Claudia looked exhausted. She's having nightmares. Wakes up crying about police taking you away. The counselor says she's showing trauma response. Helena set down the food. I'm so sorry. Don't! Claudia's voice was firm. You didn't do anything wrong. But Zoe doesn't understand that yet. She just knows people who were supposed to protect us hurt you. What does the counselor recommend? Time, consistency, therapy. Claudia sat heavily. And maybe I keep doing pickups for a while, until things settle. The suggestion hurt more than Helena expected. She'd fought for that right. Now, even in victory, fear was taking it away. If that's what's best for her, Helena said, then that's what we do. Before leaving, Helena knocked on Zoe's door. Baby girl, can I come in? A pause. Okay. Zoe sat on her bed, surrounded by stuffed animals, looking smaller than her 9 years. Helena sat beside her carefully. "I'm sorry you had to see what happened," Helena said. "That must have been scary." Zoe nodded, not meeting her eyes. "Are the bad police going to come back?" "No, baby, they're not allowed to. What they did was wrong. Now they're facing consequences." "But what if there are more bad police?" Zoe's voice was small. "How do you know who's safe?" Helena had no easy answer. The truth was complicated. "That's a really smart question," she said finally. "I don't have a perfect answer, but I can tell you this. Bad ones don't win when we speak up. They only win when we stay silent." Zoe considered this. "Is that why you didn't cry? When they arrested you?" "Part of it," Helena admitted. "But also I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. And people were watching. So I stayed calm and let the truth speak." "Did the truth win?" Helena pulled her close. "Yes, baby. Eventually the truth won." A week later, Helena was reviewing files when her phone rang. Unknown number. "Judge Briggs?" A woman's voice, nervous. "This is Mrs. Porter, from Ridgemont Elementary." Helena sat up straight. "Mrs. Porter, hello. I need to tell you something. About the day you were arrested." Porter's words rushed. "Principal Holloway told me to issue your permit. But first, she made me call someone. A number I'd never seen. Report that you'd arrived and were requesting access." Helena's pulse quickened. "Do you remember the number?" "I wrote it down." Porter's voice dropped. The person who answered didn't identify themselves, just said, "Noted," and hung up. 3 minutes later, police arrived, like they were already on the way before I finished the call. "Mrs. Porter, can you testify to this?" A long pause. "I'm scared. I have a family. Principal Holloway has friends, people who could make things difficult." "I understand. But without witnesses, the people behind this stay hidden." "I know." Porter's voice shook. "That's why I called. I just need time to talk to my husband." "Take the time you need," Helena said. "But that phone number, can you send it to Detective Reyes? Even if you're not ready to testify, that information could be crucial." "I'll think about it," Porter said. "I should have spoken up sooner." After the call, Helena sat staring at her phone. Someone had been on standby. The arrest had been orchestrated. She forwarded Porter's information to Reyes. "New witness. May have phone number of coordination point." That evening, Helena locked her chambers and headed for the parking garage. The building was mostly empty. She reached her car, pressing unlock. A folded paper was tucked under her windshield wiper. Helena looked around. The garage was empty. She pulled on gloves before touching it, preserving evidence. The note was typed. No signature. 4 lines. "You won your case. Congratulations. But you're asking questions about things you don't understand. Some stones are better left unturned." Helena's hands tightened on the paper. Not a direct threat, nothing prosecutable. Just a warning. From someone who knew where she parked, knew her schedule, knew she was still digging. She photographed it from multiple angles, then placed it in an evidence bag. Tomorrow she'd give it to Reyes. As she drove home, Helena checked her mirrors frequently. No one followed. But the message had been delivered. Someone was watching. And whoever they weren't done yet.